that the demolition is indeed 5 minutes away. A section of 95 is now shut down and traffic is detoured. We, of course, will have live coverage of the explosion when it happens, and residents of this Port Richmond neighborhood are being told to keep inside because the dust will be substantial after the explosion.
Well, live on the action cam, Amy Buckman is standing by. Amy, there you are. How you doing?
Okay, hi Scott. We just heard the 5-minute siren and everything is going to happen on schedule this morning as planned, at least according to the demolition experts. Neighbors have gathered in the area to watch the top half of this building come down. The bottom half will be torn down with conventional demolition equipment after the top half is basically blown off this morning. I spoke to some of the demolition experts and one explained why they're taking the building down with 2 different parts.
For safety reasons, you only want to blow a little bit at a time. If you shoot the entire building, it was determined by the engineers on the site that it actually made for more of a risk in either direction. It has to fall somewhere. This type of a head house is among the most difficult type of structure to bring down. It doesn't break up very well. It's made to withstand explosions, grain explosions. So you really have to bring it down in a very controlled fashion, and that's why they're doing it with this method.
For about 4 to 6 minutes after the top half of the building comes down, there's expected to be a lot of dust floating over the Port Richmond area. They've given everyone on site here dust masks like this that we've been requested to wear, and people who live in this area have been told to keep their windows and doors shut, to cover any air intake openings into their homes, and to stay inside. And all clear will be given when it's safe to come back outside. Live in Port Richmond, I'm Amy Buckman, Channel 6 Action News.
All right, Amy, thank you very much. We're going to go up now to Chopper 6 for the best view of this structure. The grain elevator is just south of Delaware and Allegheny Avenues. We have another look at the demolition from Sky 6. Can we take a look at that? Obviously, we're going to just stay here with the chopper. As Amy was mentioning, they're taking this down in pieces because of surrounding structures. There we go to Sky 6. Our view is partially obstructed by our antenna, but you can get an idea of a more level view of what this looks like. 245 feet tall. Again, only the top 135 feet will be demolished today. Should be interesting to see how that part comes tumbling down and what happens to the structures underneath. They have been clearing out some of the inside parts of this grain elevator to get ready for today's demolition.
Less than a minute away now from the scheduled demolition, and officials have some advice for you if you live near the explosion site. Close all windows, doors, and air intakes. Cover any other openings that might allow dust to enter your home. Turn off your exhaust fans. Those fans can actually draw dust into your house through nearby cracks in walls and windows. And don't look at the demolition through the windows of your own house. The glass could shatter. That's a warning. If you want to see the explosion, go to one of the vantage points, and obviously that's probably a little too late for that now, so stay with us right here on Channel 6.
That's exactly right. We're going to go to Chopper 6 now as the countdown is on. Can we take a look at that? High above the demolition site. Again, people in that area have been given masks because of the dust that is expected to be out in that area 4 to 6 minutes after the blast. I-95 detoured around this area for safety precautions. The demolition experts are going to be using a controlled explosion to detonate a little more than half of the upper section of this grain elevator. The structure, again, 245 feet high. About half of it will be demolished this morning. The rest will be torn down by conventional wrecking methods. The demolition company doing the work, Winsinger Incorporated of Philadelphia and Hainesport, New Jersey, says the structure is too heavily reinforced, made of concrete, to explode from the ground up, so they're taking a different approach now. Now we're on the action cam, focused in on the top half of the grain elevator, which will be affected by today's explosions. The elevator was part of an enormous grain exporting facility built by the old Reading Railroad in 1927. It hasn't been used for storing grain since the mid-70s, and all work in this Conrail facility here has been halted since the mid-1980s. They are clearing out this entire area, and the grain elevator is one of the last things to go.
Even though only the top half of this elevator will be demolished, it is a difficult job because it has to go in 2 separate directions. We're now ready for the explosion in Port Richmond.
Nothing has come down. Here we go. It's coming down. There's a cloud of dust.
Take a look at that. Now, as Scott just mentioned, you saw the two halves split apart, explosions going in two different directions. That was the plan of the demolition company. And look at all that dust now rising.
They had to blast it in two different directions because of molasses tanks on one side of the structure and also an office building on the other. So it was a very controlled explosion, and you can see it went off without a hitch. Especially difficult because that grain elevator was made to withstand grain explosions. So it did not come down easily. It was not an easy structure to bring down, but it went off, as we said, without any problems at all.
You can see the dust already being pulled by the winds. Let's go down now on the ground to Amy Buckman, who can tell us more about what she saw. Amy, what's going on?
Well, it was interesting because you heard the blast, and then there was a delay of, I would say, about 10 seconds before we saw all the little explosions detonated in that middle area of the building. The area then above that middle area came tumbling down. It did split, as they said it would. One part fell to the right, one part fell to the left, and what you see is what's left of the building in a cloud of dust. The dust, fortunately for me, seems to be blowing in the other direction, so we're not getting too much of it over here. A cheer came up from the crowd after the blast occurred, and I'm no expert on demolition. We'll have to talk to the experts in a little while, but from what I can see, it looks like a successful demolition, and the top half of the Farmers Exchange grain elevator appears to be gone. Live in Port Richmond, I'm Amy Buckman, Channel 6 Action News. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Amy. And now before we leave you, let's take another look at the explosion. The explosion did go off on time here, just a little bit after 8 o'clock. Looks like things went according to plan. We'll hear more from the demolition experts, obviously, if their goals were met in all of this. And you can see the aftermath, all that dust. Again, neighborhoods surrounding this Port Richmond grain elevator are being told to watch out for that dust, keeping windows and airways closed to keep it out of your homes.
We have been watching special coverage of the demolition of the Port Richmond grain explosion. Thanks for staying with us here on Action News. We will have continuing coverage of this story on Action News.
But the trickiest part of it, the top of it, gone this morning, and we watched the dust from this vantage point. It looks as though no significant problems for people. And one other note, of course, the different fuel tanks in the area, no problem there. So the top of it, an apparently successful explosion this morning, the old grain elevator. We look to 95 and expect that within the next 15 minutes or so, you should be all right in that direction. If you have places to go today, you should be fine, except obviously as you come along here, beware of gaper delays. And that is the story live from Port Richmond, a successful explosion this morning.
All right, Dick, thank you very much. Well, another implosion this weekend, but a little further from home. Take a look. Demolition experts destroyed an arena in St. Louis built 70 years ago. Special cameras were actually inside. Take a look, capturing the collapse. The arena had hosted 2 NCAA Final Fours. There it comes, and was the home of the St. Louis Blues hockey team until a newer arena was built for them in 1995.
Well, there are at least 3 new multi-millionaires this morning. 3 people.
You're not on the computer at all?
I am, but I don't. It's on the website where I put it.
I want a picture of that.
Well, yeah. Wait, do you have your email?
Yeah.
I can email you one.
All right, let me. Training one. That's what.
train service called Acela. Amtrak will put 20 new train sets into service along existing rails that have so-called tilt technology. Amtrak is also electrifying all its tracks between Washington and Boston. Amtrak says the new high-speed service will take an hour and a half off the 4.5-hour ride between New York and Boston and will reduce the 3-hour trip between Washington and New York by up to a half hour. The trains themselves will be nicer than anything travelers are used to. They'll have 304 business class seats, audio, entertainment, and electric outlets for computers at each seat, overhead bins, dining car facilities, full bathroom facilities, and the cost will be 30% less than the walk-up fare for airplane shuttles between the same cities. Now let's go live to Action News reporter Michelle McCormack outside 30th Street Station in Philadelphia. Michelle, what kind of reaction have you been getting about this new high-speed Amtrak service?
Well, Jim, about the only thing that can put the brakes on the enthusiasm of travelers is that Amtrak has not yet come out with a specific ticket price for the new rail service. Otherwise, most of the commuters we spoke with said they're ready to roll. America may be catching up with Europe in offering rail service that's as viable an alternative to travel as the airplane or the car. At least that's what Amtrak is promising when it starts its high-speed rail service through the Northeast Corridor. It predicts it can cut down travel times anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes.
You can't get someplace too quick, so bullet trains, that's the way to go.
It'd be wonderful. Less time on there, more relaxing, and it'd be a wonderful thing.
The faster train will begin rolling in October, although modeled after the long-running bullet train in France, some commuters are cautious.
Well, what in particular concerns you? Just if it's going to be that fast, as long as it's safe. As long as it's safe, yeah.
But Amtrak is emphasizing the latest in technology that makes the train fast and safe, while also touting other amenities such as bigger business class seats, power outlets for computers, and full bathrooms. Hammy Pinder is ready to line up for tickets.
It's faster than driving, and you can get work done, anything that you need to do. So it's more convenient.
The question remains, will this new line be enough to get those who are currently behind the wheel and at the airport terminal back on track and help Amtrak do something it hasn't been able to do in decades, turn a profit? Amtrak is on a roll. Last year it recorded its highest ridership numbers compared with years past, and Amtrak is hoping those numbers can only increase as its trains speed up. Live at 30th Street Station, I'm Michelle McCormack, Channel 6 Action News. Jim?
Thank you, Michelle.
Unveiled in the Big Apple, Amtrak officials hope to chop as much as 90 minutes off of its 4.5-hour Boston to New York service. And if you are traveling from Washington to New York, expect a half hour to be shaved off your trip.
Wilmington, Baltimore, BWI.
The new name for the service? Acela. And not only is it fast, it's reasonably priced.
Thank you very much.
For example, the current walk-up air shuttle rate is $199. The new service price, $139. Also expect audio entertainment, power outlets, and enclosed overhead bins.
It is a good idea to cut down on the transportation time, spend more time at your destination.
At Amtrak's 30th Street Station, travelers were pleased to hear about the new service that will soon make their journey home faster.
I think it's good because it'll impact the people who travel to New York on a daily basis. It'll make their travel quicker.
Again, for Philadelphians traveling to Boston, New York, or Washington, or anywhere in between, depending on your destination, the new service could chop as much as a half hour off traveling time. Now, I know there are plenty of questions, and all your questions will be answered in October when the new service hits the tracks. I'm Denise Saunders, KYW3 Eyewitness News.
Announced the first high-speed train service in the United States. The new passenger trains will go 150 miles an hour and travel along Amtrak's 470-mile Northeast Corridor. Trips from New York to Washington, D.C. and to Boston will each take about 2.5 to 3 hours. Fares will be priced lower than airline shuttles. The trains are to start running in October. The project cost $2 billion. And now,
Amtrak is pointing its speeding bullet at the Northeast. Today, the train service unveiled the nation's first high-speed rail system. It's called Acela. Acela, I think it is. I don't know what it's called, but it's something like that. The new bullet train will shuttle people between Boston, New York, and Washington at about 150 miles per hour. Joyce, did you see that? Acela, I think it is. Amtrak officials say they haven't established any stops yet, but they do say that Philadelphia will most likely be one of them. Service could begin as early as November for Acela
corridor. The new high-speed train called the Acela travels at 150 miles an hour. Amtrak says the new train will cut travel time between New York and Boston from 4.5 hours to 3. The New York to Washington run will take 2.5 hours instead of 3. The new high-speed rail service is expected to be up and running by November. A new area.
Survivors are now fading following this deadly train crash outside Chicago. Amtrak's City of New Orleans struck a semi-trailer truck and derailed, killing at least 14 people, and there are still some riders unaccounted for tonight.
Tuesday night, the big story on Action News is the deadly crash and disturbing revelations about the driver of the truck. The gruesome task of searching for bodies continues as investigators locate the black box, hoping to learn more of what happened right before that deadly crash of an Amtrak passenger train. It happened last night at a crossing 50 miles south of Chicago in the town of Bourbonnais, Illinois. Now, here are the latest developments. At least 14 people are now known dead, and more than 100 others are injured. Authorities say about 4 others are still unaccounted for. All of the dead were aboard one sleeper car near the front of the train. It slammed a semi-tractor trailer loaded with steel bars at a railroad crossing. The driver had only a probationary license. Now, ABC's Liz Cho is live at the scene. She's been there all day and has the latest.
Rescue crews are still sorting through the wreckage. Investigators say all the passengers who died were on board the sleeper car at the time of the accident. Investigators say it will take some time before they know what caused the crash that killed more than a dozen people and injured nearly 200 more. NTSB officials say their focus is now on the train's black box and trying to determine if the lights and crossing guard were functioning properly at the time of the accident. Illinois Central, who oversees the railroad, says the crossing was not a problem at all.
We have every confidence that the gates were operating perfectly last night, that they came down as they should, which is approximately 20